Thanks very much, Jim. A real amazing vision of the future there. I love this concept of sort of public transport but delivered personally for every individual, and that's something that technology can perhaps give us a big step forward towards. So we're now joined by Anna. Anna, good morning. Anna Walker is Chair of the Office of the Rail Regulator and has been in that role and has previously been Chief Executive of the Healthcare Commission for 5 years, and very experienced in regulatory background. So we're now got about 20 minutes to do a panel session. So this is your opportunity to ask questions on any of the 3 themes that we've talked about so far this morning, from Sir Roy, from Charles, from Jim, and of course now joined by Anna. So there's a great depth of experience and background to talk from. To start that off, then I'd just like to sort of pose a question to the panel, and just thinking about the customer. I mean, Sir Roy, how do you think the customers have perceived your report?
Well, some people have said that we didn't give enough prominence to the passenger. I take refuge in the fact that I think we addressed our terms of reference quite accurately. And I think what we addressed is a very important issue for the passenger, because the rising customer satisfaction that everybody can talk about, if you dig into that, there is one big negative in many, many of those surveys, and that is that passengers are far from enthusiastic about the value for money for their fares. Service has got a lot better, fares not so good, passenger information maybe not so good. Those are the areas that I think the passengers are saying, please concentrate on these.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Charles, would you like to respond to?
I said about people looking at the industry in a homogeneous way, and that was a trap. Actually, I think looking at customers in a homogeneous way is a trap as well. Customers are individuals. They have individual needs and aspirations and desires, and although you can generalize at one level about what customers want or need, I think you have to accept that, you know, for many customers, they have a very different individual needs. And of course, the railway is mass transit, so in the way in which we provide services to customers, we're going to disappoint some people on some occasions. But that doesn't mean that's a counsel of despair, and we should all throw our hands in the air and say, well, you know, there's nothing to be done then, is there? I think really what Jim has said about trying our best to tailor what we give to customers and the way in which we approach our customers within the limitations of something which is mass transit is the clue to the successful route to better delivery for customers.
Does technology allow us to do that better than we've been able to do before? What's changing in this?
I don't think there's any question about that. There's technologies available today that aren't being used as well as they could be by a number of industries. So I think that what's interesting is the consumerization effect of technology. And it really is all about the customers have chosen how they want to interact with the world around them. So consequently, business services or consumer services, of which transport is one, have to adapt to that very fact. Customers have banded together in the use of social media. They've banded together in the use of the internet. Unfortunately, what the internet has not been able to give the consumer is more time.
Yeah.
They've given them more information.
Yeah.
They've helped them create a new set of demands placed on service providers, demands that are, so I would even argue, maybe a bit unrealistic, because as Charles has said, you can't basically peanut butter this. You can't come up with one answer for every constituent. Unfortunately, I think that what's happened, though, is retailers are setting the bar. Retailers are sort of enamored with this market of one concept. So through this just mountainous amount of data and information that's out there, there's this idea that we can personalize everything. And I think that to a great extent, that's okay, that's fine. When you do try to bring that concept back to something as, you know, mass transit, I like to call it customer transit, but it ultimately is mass transit, and it does need to serve the greater good of the many, but not every one individual. But technology, no question, it's both good and, as I said, it's a double-edged sword in many ways.
Now, of course, Anna, this leads on to the ORR's view on passenger information, which I guess is very topical at the moment.
Well, if I may, I'd like to make 2 points in this debate. The first is starting with this question of value for money versus passenger satisfaction, because this is something which, from spending 5 years regulating healthcare, is something which I think is worth us all understanding. And Roy has described it entirely. What we found in healthcare is if you asked people whether they were satisfied with their healthcare, a very high percentage said yes, this is the care that they got if they needed to go to hospital. If you then ask those same people what they thought about it as value for money, they were extremely concerned. And the point I'm seeking to make is that there are two sets of issues here. There is one, which is our satisfaction when we travel, when we're actually a passenger, and the other is this question of how much money, taxpayers' money, our money, goes into the railway service. And I really think there are parallels between healthcare and the railways, because both of them touch very large numbers of people's lives in this country, and both are in receipt of huge public money. So I just want to make that point, because I think it is explicable. And I think what we're having is a discussion, which is after one's had the debate about how much public money, how much of taxpayers' money should go into the rail sector, and taking Roy's really important point, that we've absolutely assured ourselves that where the normal market mechanisms can't work, then there is sufficient bearing down to ensure that that public money is spent effectively and efficiently, and the regulator's clearly got a key role in this. Then I think what we're discussing, I absolutely understand, which is that passengers should be at the heart of issues. Now, if I may, having made that important point, I want to go on and make a second important point, and it's this. I've been quite interested since I came in, Roy talking about the alignment of incentives. I didn't hear David. And Charles talking about the importance of change from government and from the regulators, and the regulators putting the right kind of framework, encouraging, in effect, as I understood what you were saying, Charles, market mechanisms to work as far as they possibly can. The point I would like to make is this. At the moment, what we have is a regulatory system, part of which ORR runs, and part of which the Department for Transport runs. And within that, both the Department for Transport and the ORR have roles in relation to the passenger. And I get quite a lot of personal letters now of dissatisfaction. I would absolutely agree, by the way, with the rising trend of overall satisfaction. But I get some which are about dissatisfaction. And unfortunately, some people have got hold of my email and are now emailing me directly from platforms across the country.
I can imagine.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine. The important point I want to make is, if we want a clear system which enables the dissatisfied customer to surface the complaint efficiently and get it looked at for all of us to act on it, we're going to have to be clearer what the regulatory mechanisms are around that as a whole. In that context, ORR has just said to the railway sector, with some trepidation, look, passenger information during disruption isn't good enough. What we would prefer to do is to all be on the same page, pulling together with the same framework to get these things right.
Superb. So there's some really big views to get us going this morning.